Picture this. It's early morning, June 27th, 2025. Halifax, Nova Scotia. The kitchen smells like simmering lentils and fresh herbs. A 90-year-old woman moves carefully through the space, setting the table, not just for herself, but for her sons, like she does every day. She's been up since dawn cooking. We walk past people like this every day. The grandmother at the grocery store carefully selecting vegetables, the woman praying quietly in the back pew, the one whose kitchen always seems to have something delicious happening. But what if I told you this quiet morning ritual, this simple act of preparing a meal and never eating alone, was the thread that held together a family scattered across 3 continents and 6 decades of unimaginable loss? I'm Steve Rode, and this is True Stories from the Obit Files. A few times every week, I share one real story from a real obituary about someone whose life you never knew about. These aren't celebrities or headlines, just regular people who lived extraordinary lives. Laurice Arab was 90 when she passed away on June 27, 2025, surrounded by her loving family. Born in the mountains of Lebanon, she became the kind of woman who could stretch love across oceans. But here's what I didn't expect when I kept reading about this remarkable woman's life. Laurice was born on May 23, 1935, in Diman, Lebanon, a village carved into the slopes of the great Lebanese mountains. Picture stone houses climbing up hillsides, the air thin and clear, where families had lived for generations. At 9 years old, she faced her first devastating loss. Her only brother, Yusuf, died when he was just 12, and she talked about him every single day for the next 81 years. Every single day. Until she passed. I can imagine her as a young girl, carrying that grief, but also carrying his memory like a flame. She just refused to let it go out. The kind of person who understood, even at 9, that love doesn't end just because someone is gone. By 19, she had married Laurice Arab, and together they built their life on those mountain slopes, raising 6 children and instilling in them what mattered most: hard work, their Maronite Catholic faith, and the richness of their Lebanese heritage. But here's where Laurice's story becomes something that would test any mother's heart. One by one, 4 of her 6 children left Lebanon, seeking better opportunities. 3 heading to Canada, 1 to Australia. I mean, picture this. It's the 1980s, 1990s, no reliable internet, phone service that cuts in and out, and your children are scattered across the globe, facing whatever they're facing in foreign countries, speaking new languages, and building new lives. Yeah, I wasn't there, but I bet she lay awake at night wondering, are they eating enough? Are they safe? Do they still remember who they are? Then in 1990, after 37 years of marriage, her husband Nasser suddenly and tragically passed away. He was only 61, she was 55, and suddenly a widow, still processing the distance from her children, still carrying the daily memory of her brother. But here's what you couldn't see if you'd walked past Laurice during those hardest years. Here's what grief looked like when it was channeled into something life-giving rather than life-taking. She started traveling. Canada, Australia. Wherever her children had landed, she followed. Not to move them back home, not to guilt them into returning, but to watch their families grow, to meet grandchildren, to sit at their tables and say, yeah, they were okay. More than okay. They were thriving. In the end, Laurice didn't just follow her children. She built a life that stretched across continents. A home in Diman, a home in Halifax, and one heart anchoring both. What I love about her story is that Laurice found her superpower in the most ordinary place imaginable, her kitchen. She was renowned. That's the word her family used, renowned, for her culinary abilities. Traditional Lebanese cuisine that filled tables in both Canada and Lebanon. Her children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, extended family and friends would gather around those tables to share meals and share their lives with her. Picture the rhythm of it, the preparation, the anticipation, the gathering, the stories told over steaming plates. The way she used food not just to nourish bodies, but to weave relationships, to create spaces where people wanted to linger. And here's the detail that stopped me cold. Even on the day she passed away, she had awakened early that morning and prepared a meal of lentils and salad, expecting her sons to join her as they regularly did. 90 years old, the day she would die, and she was still cooking for others. Because Laurice had made one unbreakable rule: she would never eat alone. I mean, think about that for a moment. In a world where families scatter, where people get busy, where it's easier to grab something quick and eat in front of a screen, this woman insisted on turning every meal into an act of communion. I like to think that when her sons walked into her kitchen, something in their shoulders relaxed. Maybe they didn't say much. Maybe they didn't have to, because in that kitchen, everything important had already been said. In the way she stirred the lentils and in the way she set the plates. People who knew Laurice also knew she was a deeply devoted Maronite Catholic. In Lebanon, she attended daily Mass. In her later years in Canada, she would watch Mass multiple times a day in both Arabic and English. She had a special prayer for each of her children and their families, which she prayed daily. But what moves me most is that she had a deep devotion to the Virgin Mary, and she prayed specifically for one thing: that she would pass into death peacefully. A prayer that was graciously granted. People like Laurice, they're anchors in a world that's always rushing somewhere else. They understand that love is a daily practice, that presence is a choice you make over and over, and that sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is to refuse to let anyone eat alone. Every person has a story like this. The grandmother who calls every Sunday, the neighbor who always makes too much food, the one whose house somehow becomes the place everyone gathers. Each one carrying something beautiful, building something lasting, creating spaces where people remember they belong to each other. Maybe you know someone who has that same gift, the ability to turn an ordinary meal into a sacred space. Would you notice? Would you see that it's not just food, it's love and memory and belonging, all served on a plate? If stories like this matter to you, make sure you're subscribed to share a new one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Not everyone makes the front page, but everyone, and I mean everyone, has a story worth telling. Real people, real lives, never ordinary. Thank you for letting me tell this one.